What's going on, guys? Welcome to the Scent Bubble. I'm your host for the afternoon, and today is nothing short of a classic, nostalgic, special episode. That's right, we're going to put our nose to the first fragrance I ever rocked in high school. I had about two or three designer scents, but this one I acquired in a very special way. And I wore this any season, any reason, like a dang idiot. I didn't know about climate and notes and accords. I just knew I wanted to smell good, and this made me feel good. And so I rocked it dang near around the clock. I'm surprised I still have juice left for it, but this was just my go to everyday scent. And I thought I'd love to, just share that with you guys and maybe spark some conversation about what you guys were rocking and kind of my thoughts and vibe and what the times were like, 15 or so odd years ago when I was rocking this fragrance. But before we get into all that, I need y'all to check out that intro. All right. Welcome to the Scent Bubble, guys. Now, this fragrance, I don't remember exactly to the T how I acquired it, but it was either my brother's or my dad's. And this happened to just be kind of laying around in the house, not being used. And I kind of just confiscated it as a young kid, wanting to smell good. And, at that point, the only thing I knew about fragrance was stuff like Jordache and Cool Water. And I think maybe Curve might have been out at the time. And other people rocked that stuff. But, a lot of those atomizers on those bottles were like a dang Nerf gun or a squirt gun. And they were real cheap, and they smelled somewhat synthetic, alcohol blast type fragrances. So when I got my hands on this and I smelled it, it was love at first sight. Again, I didn't know anything about seasons and note breakdowns and all that. I was just like, ooh, this smells somewhat mature. This is sweet. This is cozy. And I wore it every day, and you couldn't tell me nothing about it. This fragrance is coming to you from the house of Marc Jacobs, and it is Marc Jacobs by Marc Jacobs for Men. Self-titled fragrance. And look at that juice. I can tell you that back in the day, this juice was a lot lighter. There we go. But I am shocked to see that I still have half of this fragrance because I remember applying this around the clock. And just curious here, I'm going to pull up. Yeah, this fragrance was launched in 2002. I graduated in 2007. So this fragrance would have come out around my middle school years, and I didn't acquire it until a few years later in high school. So it would have been definitely kind of one of the top fragrances of the time. For now, looking into the note breakdown and everything, it would have been a cold weather fragrance, but this definitely would have been a popular scent back in the day, and I just loved it. I confiscated this from someone in the family, don't remember who, and man, you couldn't tell me nothing with this fragrance. I rocked it at school. I rocked it on dates. Um, I might have rocked this in PE, family events, suit and tie. It didn't matter. I was rocking this cozy, warm fragrance. Now, before, matter of fact, just to kind of give homage to the OG, we're going to put it on a test strip real quick, and I'm going to put it to skin, and because it's a potent fragrance. And let's just go to the note breakdown before I even um really start to give it my own feedback, because I'm just curious. I'm just curious about what it actually is, because I never actually saw the notes for myself. Okay, so again, this is what the bottle looks like for those of you that don't know. It's a real classy kind of OG bottle. I liked how it had that kind of wide base. It just felt real, like it had a lot of substance, clean and to the point. Note breakdown here, we got cypress up top, cardamom, ginger, bergamot, cumin. Middle notes, we've got fig leaf, watery notes, cyclamen. I don't even know what that is. Someone correct me in the comments below. We've got notes of rose. And then in the base, we have cedar, tonka bean, oak moss, and patchouli, kind of the four horsemen here. Those are just very common notes that we see in a lot of fragrances. Now that you guys have seen that, note breakdowns aside, I'm just going to tell you what I smell going back to this fragrance 15 some odd years later. Okay, so this is a cozy scent. It's warm. I might need to spray this again because that juice is different now. Yeah, somewhat powdery, like it's a dense, slightly dense fragrance, like it has weight to it. Sweet, cozy, slightly woody, but mostly on the sugary sweet side. Again, this is not synthetic sweet. This is just natural, dense sweetness. There's somewhat of a freshness to it on the dry down, but yeah, I'm mostly just getting like warm, cozy, naturally sweet vibes, almost holiday, but not gourmand in any way. Just like sweet aroma on top of woods with a touch of freshness and spice. The spice is like 5%. It's almost not even there. It's almost more like a flavor twist. But yeah, warm, cozy, powdery, even. Man, just such a winter night, Christmas morning, turtleneck type vibe. You got to go to a funeral and you want to just uplift people with your scent, or a get together or a family reunion, even on a more definitely kind of like formal slash romantic slash cozy holiday vibes. I would rock this all day. It definitely smells like vintage. Not vintage in the way that like maybe something like a Eau Sauvage is, where it's just kind of like earthy and linear. There's absolutely, complexity to this scent, but it just kind of smells like, maybe because of the density to the fragrance and the blend, it just kind of feels aged. You know what I'm saying? But, now going back to the note breakdown here, just to kind of understand maybe some of what I liked about it, I definitely get a little bit of that cypress. Um, I don't smell explicitly the ginger and bergamot, but I definitely think that's adding to kind of the backbone freshness that you kind of get. Again, it's not a freshie, but after it dries down on skin, it kind of lightens up on the powderiness. Definitely getting those sweet touches from the rose, and the tonka bean. Let's check out this floral note here. Is it sweet? Okay, so it's just kind of lightening up the fragrance, as well with the citruses. Um, what's contributing to that sweetness? Okay, so sweet resinous fragrance coming from the what? The cardamom? Yeah. Cardamom, rose. Is this fig leaf sweet? Okay, so no. Okay, so most of it's coming from, I think, the rose, tonka bean, cardamom vibes. But man, oh, such a good scent, guys. I mean, I love this. The projection and longevity on this was awesome. If I put this on in the morning, I was a weak sprayer back in the day, so I might have hit myself with 4 or 5 sprays at the very max in any occasion. But this thing just lasted the whole day. It sat on clothes. It wasn't quite a room filler, but it was for me because I just distinctly, it's all I wore. I knew how to detect it immediately. But it is so powdery and dense and complex with the notes that you can definitely tell that the projection, the scent bubble, the sillage was heavy. When I wore this stuff, people were like, "Oh shoot, what are you wearing?" And kids don't know about seasons and reasons for rocking fragrances. They just know, does he smell good or does he not? And I don't remember if I was getting more compliments in the colder months. Being from Arizona, it's pretty much warm year round. So, I was always indoors. So maybe that contributed to me, flying under the radar with a fragrance like this. But man, this was just such a charmer. I remember just a lot of good memories with this fragrance, and it served me well. I'm still so shocked that I have this much juice in here. I think maybe I might have been rocking something from like Gucci. I would have had some kind of freshie like an Adidas or a Curve. I think Curve had like an alternate curve that was a little more aquatic or something like that. What else would I have rocked back then? I might have had some Cool Water in the tuck, but I still don't think I was really rocking that. Oh, Gio Armani was the next fragrance I got after this, Acqua di Gio Armani original OG. And that's what kind of took me into the freshy category, just like aquamarine, classy, fresh manliness. And between Acqua di Gio and this, I had my serious, warm, formal, cozy occasion scent, and I had my aquatic, freshy with class. Oh man, even the juice is somewhat leaking on the top, so I can't really shake this. But yeah, this was just, man, when I go back and smell this, I smell high school for me. And I just put a lot of wear and tear on that. It's interesting because nowadays online, I think it's like, I mean, I've only seen it offered on a couple different places like eBay, but it seems like the price ranges from like $100 to $500. I think I even saw a listing for $400 or $500 for this fragrance because it's not out anymore. And I think the lowest I saw was somewhere in the $100 to $200 range for like a portion of the fragrance missing. But yeah, guys, I'm interested. What was y'all's first fragrance? It doesn't have to necessarily be the first fragrance you ever bought, but what was the first fragrance that like it was just love at first sight that you rocked as a kid that wasn't just your run of the mill cool water curve type of vibe? Something that you would have had to go to the mall to pick up, something that maybe your older brother or older sister or parents kind of passed down to you. That was another thing. I always looked to see what my dad was wearing back in the day. I remember seeing things like Fahrenheit, Gio Armani. Um, what else? Marc Jacobs was definitely on the shelf. My brother Andrew was rocking, Marc Jacobs heavy back in the day. In fact, he's the first person I saw rocking this, and he smelled classy. And he was kind of into the finer things in life. So I think that's what kind of drew me to it is that I kind of felt like this fragrance for me being like a 16-year-old in high school put hair on my chest. When I went out to different occasions, it made me feel a little bit more grown. But yeah, this was just compliment factor, projection, longevity, price was free because I just found it from somebody in my house. I think back in the day, this probably would have went for something. I think this is like 100 ml. A fragrance like this probably would have went for somewhere between $60 to $100, I imagine, back in the day. But yeah, this was just a beautiful fragrance. Have you guys smelled Marc Jacobs at all, OG, or anything in the realm of it? I know Marc Jacobs is still putting out fragrances to this very day, and some of the female fragrances I really gravitate towards in terms of my wife rocking them. And so it's cool to see fragrances kind of stand the test of time and fragrance houses continue doing what they love to do. Appreciate y'all for rocking with me. Just want to share that story time with you. I know everybody's first fragrance is different, and I'm sure it's so beautiful because telling a story about your first fragrance, it's not going to be all dressed up. It's not going to be about note breakdowns and seasons, and no one's really educated when they get in their first fragrance. The common denominator between everybody trying fragrance for the first time is, does this smell good? And if it smells good, you might have a certain occasion for it, but generally speaking, most people want a fragrance that they can rock around the clock, any season, any reason. So I'm interested in the comments to see what y'all were rocking with in your youth, if you had that. I know not everybody got into fragrance when they were young. I come from the body axe spray generation where a lot of people were rocking deodorants and body sprays and stuff like that. Definitely some cats were rocking colognes, but nobody had a cologne collection. You know what I'm saying? Everybody had less than 3 fragrances if they even had any. And I think that plays into kind of the psychology of how I feel about fragrances today, because the reality is if I asked you in a given day, how many people do you know, like how many people do you smell on a daily basis where you say, "Oh, they're wearing a fragrance"? I know for me personally, maybe less than 5% of everybody I interact with, I can even smell a fragrance on. And so, thinking back to when I was a kid rocking fragrance, I didn't care what people thought. I was just wearing the fragrance for me. And I felt like I was one of the only people rocking fragrance. And so a lot of times, part of a big reason for wearing fragrance is self-expression and enhancing your vibe and your mood. Not always, nowadays we got categories like panty droppers and freshies and best night out fragrances and best summer, spring, fall, winter fragrances. There's just we have an occasion and a season for every fragrance and why you should wear it at this time. But I never thought that way growing up. So sometimes it's just a good reminder that back then I was so carefree. I liked a fragrance and that's the only reason I needed to rock it anytime I wanted. And so maybe you guys can share in that type of sentiment. But I'm interested to know what you guys were rocking back in the day, in your youth and when you were first getting started with fragrance. Again, I appreciate y'all for rocking with me in the scent bubble. And until next time, y'all stay blessed, keep smelling fresh, and we'll see you on the flip side.